He said, Jesus Christ has risen, and he is the open door. He said that Jesus Christ has risen, and he is the open door.
Welcome, patriots, lovers of conservatism, and even lovers of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Welcome to the Cajun Conservative Show. This is your brother Barry Martin, filling in with my good brother Isaac Hayes, who's taking a much-needed break this week. And I do believe this is my third time filling in for the Cajun Conservative. So hopefully for all of us, the third time is the charm. But it's been a while, probably over 2 years since I've been in this studio speaking to you. So it's probably a good opportunity to reintroduce myself. I'm from Crowley, Louisiana, actually home of some of the most infamous politicians Louisiana has ever produced, namely Senator John Bel. You probably remember him. And, of course, the illustrious Edwin Edwards. And I think it is the state of Louisiana that I'd like to focus on this for this show, because 2023 is definitely the year of opportunity for conservatives here in Louisiana. But before I get down to that, I really would like to congratulate the Cajun conservative himself, Isaac Hayes. As recently, I believe, he has reached over 150 episodes of this podcast. And, you know, I admire the kind of dedication and passion that he puts into each and every episode. You know, he's a strong Christian male conservative voice that we need more of at this moment in time. In fact, he does 2 podcasts with the Brothers Just Searching, which hits on the spiritual sides of things. So I don't know how he finds time to do all of these things. And, you know, I'm a big buy local guy. You know, I have a small business myself, you know, so we really need to support our local podcaster, the Cajun Conservative, Isaac Hayes. So like I was saying, 2023 will be a great year, hopefully, for the Cajun Conservatives, as I believe he's just about on every platform that's out there. And I think he's been blowing up a little bit even on TikTok. So hopefully we can have a big year for the Cajun Conservative as he lines up more interviews with local and state politicians. But let's go back a little history. Your brother Barry here, I'd have to make a confession right now. I'm a little bit of a nerd. I like to follow history. Brother LB riding shotgun with me. He's kind of chuckling. But I do study history, and I was born in the year of 1968, when Louisiana was basically a one-party state. You know, we had about 90% of the electorate was registered Democrat. You know, and the joke at that time was that the Republican Party of Louisiana could hold its state's convention in a phone booth. Now, that used to be funny, but now you got to explain to the young people what a phone booth was. They don't have many of those around anymore. But I remember something began to change around 1972-73 when the Roe versus Wade decision was laid down by the Supreme Court of the United States, legalizing abortion in the womb of the mother. And, you know, the Democratic Party over time became more aligned with pro-abortion policies. So by the 80s, people in Louisiana and across the nation, they started leaving the Democratic Party based on this one issue alone here in the South. And that was the case, of course, with my mom and dad as they changed to the Republican Party in the 80s. In fact, my mom was named Florence Martin, and she was, for several years, president of the Acadia Parish Right to Life. And she was very active in the pro-life movement for decades. And I can't underestimate President Ronald Reagan, what he did for the conservative movement nationwide, not only nationwide, but right here in Louisiana. In 1984, Reagan carried the state of Louisiana by over 60% of the vote against the Democrat Walter Mondale. So it was definitely a landslide. So while the people of Louisiana were mostly registered Democrat, they also had Christian and Catholic traditions in this area, and they began to vote more conservative as the Democrat Party left conservative values. So this meant in federal elections, many in Louisiana started voting Republican. And even in the statewide elections, we were seeing more Republicans being elected. But it was just so frustrating that at the governor, for some reason, at the governor level of Louisiana, I mean, even we had Republican governors a few times that managed to get elected. But there were such huge disappointments as their governing did not adhere to the conservative principles that they campaigned on to get elected. You know, we can even say that about our current governor, John Bel Edwards, who campaigned as a conservative, but then he has governed as anything but. You know, and even so, you know, our electorate continues to trend more Republican in registration during the era of Trump and Biden. So now that the first time, this is up-to-date numbers, I'm looking at the February numbers for state registration, that the first time in our history, over 1/3 of the voters in Louisiana are registered Republican. And the Democrats, the mighty Democrat Party of the 60s that was over 90%, is now down to less than 40% of registered voters. I think it's like 39.21. And it's quite conceivable in these next two big election cycles, 2023 and 2024, that there possibly will be more registered Republicans than Democrats in the state of Louisiana for the first time in history. But still, the beginning of this huge 2023 state election season, like Brother Isaac said recently on his program, that Louisiana very much remains a purple state, marred in a horrible business climate and corrupt and inefficient state government. So let's take a quick break, and then we can talk about what we can be done to turn this around.
How you doing, everyone? Isaac here. I'm the Cajun Conservative, and I want to thank Brother Lanny Hayes from Hayes' Dump Truck Service for their generous support of the Cajun Conservative and Brothers Just Searching. Hayes' Dump Truck Service serves the Lafayette and surrounding areas. If you have any job that you need done, like cleanup or hauling material to your job site or your home, we haul limestone, we haul sand, we haul topsoil, any type of material you need. If you're in the Lafayette and surrounding areas, please call Brother Lanny Hayes at 337-852-8043. Remember, Hayes' Dump Truck Service.
Strength, you're my peace of mind. When this old world seems to get me down, you're my hope and strength. You're my peace of mind. This old world seems to get me down.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Once again, this is your guest host, Brother Barry Martin, filling in for the illustrious Cajun Conservative himself, Isaac Hayes. And in the first segment, I kind of teed this up that I would like to talk about the state elections coming up here in 2023 and how they present such a great opportunity for conservatives to start to turn around the state of the state that we find ourselves in. And here we sit a little bit more halfway through the month of February in 2023, and we find our state is reeling from an outward migration problem as people have been fleeing the state for several years. And just last year alone, I believe we lost another 47,000 people in population. As our young people are going, they're going where the jobs are. And, so we've been suffering here now 7 long years under Governor John Bel Edwards, who I was calling for a while. I used to call him John Hell Edwards because he's really brought Hades down upon this state, especially during the COVID pandemic and with all the authoritarian lockdowns that hurt so many small businesses, hurt so many people, including my own small business. I still haven't attained the level of where my business was 3 years ago. And I attribute a lot of that to the policies of what John Bel did through these emergency executive orders, where he just basically told us that we couldn't do business. So I'm looking forward to something new, to say the least. Because, think about it. Remember this. He shut down the churches. Okay? Violation of the First Amendment and our freedom of religion that is enshrined in our Constitution. And I remember he really did persecute one particular pastor in Baton Rouge, if y'all might remember, named Pastor Tony Spell. He actually had this pastor arrested and almost thrown in jail for the high crime of having church. And Pastor Spell has been vindicated in court, but he still has never been compensated at all for what he was put through. Like I said, just for basically exercising his freedom of religion that is guaranteed in our Constitution. So it can't be understated the harm that our state has been put through because of John Bel Edwards. It's hard to imagine that Louisiana would ever elect a governor that would try to shut down the oil and gas industry. I mean, that boggles the mind, knowing that, we all have relatives that have made their living in there. My dad worked in the oil industry for years until he retired. And many a good living in this state has been provided through the oil and gas industry. And, and then to go in favor of the green energy scam, that has cost us tremendously. So now the nightmare of John Bel Edwards will be officially coming in, as he will be term limited out of office, and a new governor, for better or for worse, will be elected this coming November. But really, it never should have happened in the first place that we ended up with John Bel Edwards. The state Republican Party in 2 election cycles in a row really did drop the ball and failed us. Despite us having an obviously majority conservative electorate, a state where Trump won 58% of the vote in 2016 and even got more in the year 2020, that we would elect John Bel Edwards. And then you even look at the states surrounding Louisiana right now. They are actually growing and creating jobs, while Louisiana is losing jobs and losing population. So you see these other states in the South, like Texas, Florida, Arkansas, and even Alabama, and even Mississippi. Mississippi, we used to always be able to point to that we were at least, a little bit better than them. But because of John Bel Edwards, really in everything that is bad, Louisiana is number one. And in everything that is good, we're at the top. We're at the bottom of the list. So what's the difference? Okay, if we have the same geography, we got basically similar cultures as these other states surrounding us. Well, why is Louisiana falling behind our fellow states, our sister states? And if you look at these states in the South, the answer is all of these states currently have conservative Republican governors, except Louisiana. So we, while they have conservative governors, we're stuck with a governor who I like to say he talks with a lisp. He's not conservative. So what do we need to be looking for in a governor as this election closes in? What would be the type of person that could turn the state of Louisiana around? Because it's crucially important that we get the right one because of what we've been through the last 7 years. And governor, there is, I think, an example we can look for that would give us a sign of the type of person that we could use in Louisiana. And this is a guy who's performing the job of governor already in a sister southern state at a higher level from a conservative viewpoint than any other politician in the country right now. And, I don't even really think that it's close. And I'm not going to leave you in suspense. I think it's the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis. For many reasons in both substance and style, he has advanced the conservative cause in the state of Florida. First of all, in COVID, even though he had to go along with the shutdowns, which everybody had to, he continued to be the most vocal and the most one matching his rhetoric with actions at pushing back at all these maniacal lockdowns and these unconstitutional vaccine mandates. And, because of his actions during that, Florida actually was outperforming the rest of the country during the COVID pandemic. And now that the COVID pandemic is finally being put to rest, or at least we're acknowledging that it's not a big factor anymore, we see Florida has recovered quicker than any other state. So much so that the people from even like New York and other blue states have been flocking to Florida. Like New York, they have like tens of thousands of people that have relocated to Florida during the COVID pandemic because they're fleeing in droves because they want something that Americans used to take for granted, and that's freedom. Florida became known as the state where you could still be free. And since then, he has been the most effective as a culture warrior also. Don't you think we need a culture warrior? We can't just have somebody that's trying to improve government. We are deep in the midst of a battle for the culture and the very heart and soul of our state. So we need to look at this. And once again, it's not just with empty rhetoric that I see DeSantis attacking this problem, but in substantive action. And we must, instead of looking at just these politicians' words, we have to hold them accountable for what they campaign for. That we're not just listening to words, but we're looking for actions, and actions that are actually having an impact, a discernible impact on the climate in our culture. And I think that's what we're starting to see in Florida with Governor Ron DeSantis, because he's passed legislation and still is passing legislation through the Florida House and Senate, that will prevent some of this woke indoctrination of our children in public schools. You know the stuff, the critical race theory that they're jamming down our kids' throats, and most horribly, the abomination of the LGBTQ cult. Y'all all remember the Grammy performance. It was commented on recently, even by our Cajun Conservative himself, that we see now. It's not only sick and perverted, but it's satanic what they are trying to do to our children. All the way down to promoting the sickness of genital mutilation of minor children in the psychotic name of gender-affirming surgery. This is beyond what we ever thought could happen in this country in my lifetime. I never thought that this could happen. For heaven's sakes, science has shown that the human mind isn't even fully developed till like your early 20s. Why are we not trusting the science when it comes to this issue? And why aren't we protecting our vulnerable children who are easily influenced from these predators that would seek to confuse them about their own gender and sexuality? It shouldn't happen. And also DeSantis, he is going after some of these venues that like to host these so-called family-friendly drag queen shows, which there's no such thing. But he started holding these places accountable for promoting, sexually explicit performances that is well beyond their age to handle. And, I do get kind of passionate about this. I remember they were trying to bring the drag queen story hour to the libraries here in Lafayette a few years back. And we definitely showed up at some of these city council meetings to express our objections. But, it's just, have we lost our mind as a people, our spirit, our soul, when we're allowing these types of things to happen to our children? So I look to people like DeSantis that they're actually doing something to combat this. It's more than rhetoric. They're taking action to hold people accountable for these things. And when you hold people accountable for molesting the minds of our children and hold them accountable, they'll stop doing it. We have to stand up and say no. So, I notice, I get a little bit emotional when it comes to children, because they are the most vulnerable among us. And as adults, we have to make sure that we're doing everything we can protect them. And also DeSantis, he's been pushing back on this radical racial equity agenda in hiring in his state government. As governor, he's fired many incompetent social justice warriors, no doubt got elected with Soros money, who obtained their position based on what kind of intersectionality box they checked off. We have that in our vice president right now. You see that, Kamala Harris. She really was not qualified for the job at all, but she checked a few boxes on the racial diagram and the gender diagram. And we see that with our Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg. This guy has no clue what's going on. We have a town in Ohio right now that literally has a mushroom cloud of toxic fumes escaping into the atmosphere. And little Pete is nowhere to be found because he shouldn't have never been in that position. Another thing that DeSantis has done, he's battled the entertainment cabal that is polluting our culture. Most recently and most notably, he got legislation passed and signed removing some of the privilege of the Disney Corporation, for promoting the woke agenda in Florida's public schools. He has fought back against the ESG investing movement that encourages, through reward and penalty, the goals of the climate change cult, the wackos, as Rush Limbaugh used to call them, the environmental wackos. ESG stands for environmental social governing. And this is what has been being pushed in these investment funds to reward companies that go along with the climate change cult and penalize companies that don't. So what DeSantis has done with this, he has made it illegal for Florida state government and its pensions to invest in any fund that promotes this nonsense. I think BlackRock is one of the biggest investment groups that's pushing this. So this is substantial. This is real stuff that Ron DeSantis is doing to combat the very forces that, are trying to strangle any ounce of freedom that we have left. And he's hurting them in the pocketbooks where it counts, where they will stand up and pay attention. And maybe they'll think twice before they start promoting these radical agendas of the left. So we have in DeSantis, he's showing a way that we can all fight back and try to defund the radical agenda of the left. But most importantly, as I think for an example of Louisiana, we've seen the state of Florida, which really, if we go back to the 2000 presidential election, I'm old enough to remember that it came down to just a handful full of votes that made George Bush president over Al Gore. Good old Al Gore. So we see Florida was basically like Louisiana, is a purple state. That they were flipping from Democrat to Republican. And now, you fast forward to the year 2016, President Trump barely carried Florida in the 2016 election. I forget how many votes it was, but that was the determining factor that gave us President Trump in 2016 was Florida, but he barely eked it out. But now you come to this last election cycle, Governor DeSantis, this last, to show you how much has changed in Florida since DeSantis was elected, that he won over 60% of the vote in this last election in November. How did this happen? How did this change happen? To the point where Florida goes from being a iffy purple state to now looks like it's a bright glowing red state that you can just chunk into the Republican column. Well, one of the reasons is DeSantis actually governed conservatively like he campaigned. He actually fulfilled the promises that he told that he would clean up the state of Florida and get rid of some of this nonsense. And, people actually appreciate that. So they went and voted for him en masse. But also, Florida had a reputation for a lot of corruption. Some of these big Democrat counties. Does that ring a bell? Does that sound like Orleans Parish? So he went into these counties that had corrupt people at their registrar of votes, and he fired him. He got rid of them. Okay, now all of a sudden, we see that Republicans are winning. I think we can make a connection right there. So he's doing a lot when it comes to election integrity. And after the 2020 election, I think all of conservatives are very concerned about that. And he's done, and it's this, he's done this not in like a small sparsely populated state like maybe South Dakota, where you have, I think, Kristi Noem, another conservative. But the difference here, DeSantis has done this in the third most populated state in the United States, which makes it much more impressive that he has been able to accomplish this in one of the biggest states in the United States in just over a period of 4 or 5 years. So this is a very impressive record. So I think, really in Louisiana, our battle crier says, do what DeSantis did in Florida. That's what we want done in Louisiana. We want someone to change the state of Louisiana the way Florida has been changed. So I think there's a template here, a standard that's been laid down. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just all we have to do is look at this example that's sitting right in front of us. That I really think all the conservative politicians ought to be following this. Defund the left. Go after, sue these companies, take away their privileges when they start violating the rights of our people and children. So, because it works. It's been working in Florida. If it worked in a purple state of Florida, it can work in a purple state like Louisiana. So let's just keep that in mind. Now, I think right now I'll go ahead and take another short break. And after the break, I would like to get into more details on who the candidates are in this upcoming Louisiana gubernatorial race.
Cheers and good on you, boys and girls. My name is Scott Ford, and I have a podcast on Spotify. I would love it if you went over and subscribed to my podcast. It's a talk show. It covers a wide variety of topics. I cover success, motivation, funny stories, topical events, things going on in the world. And I would love it if you went over and subscribed to my podcast. Thank you so much, Isaac. God bless. Enjoy your life.
You bought us with your blood, cleansed and made us whole. Not one hoof, not one soul.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Cajun Conservative Show. This is your brother Barry, and I got brother LB riding shotgun here with me, making sure I don't break anything in the Cajun Conservative studio here. I was telling brother Isaac, I kind of wanted to stay away from the national scene because it's even too crazy for me to talk about what's going on. I mean, we've got Chinese spy balloons. We got people talking about UFOs. We got a city on fire, train derailments every week with toxic waste. So I figured let me focus on the state of Louisiana for a while. But, in preparation, I listened to the Moon Griffon show all week, and he's a good source of information along with the Cajun Conservative to kind of fill you in on, having interviews with these local politicians. And I'm looking forward to what Brother Isaac can line up on the Cajun Conservative. But, it looks like, according to the Moon Griffon show, we have at least about 3 declared Republican candidates that have announced that they're running for governor this year. First and foremost, I think everybody knows Attorney General Jeff Landry. And he's actually a local boy to, around this area of the Cajun Conservative. I think he's from St. Martinville. So he's the local boy in the race. And also we have State Treasurer John Schroeder, who has thrown his hat into the ring, and he's a Republican from Covington, Louisiana. And then there's, I think, a female. A female has entered the race, a lady named Sharon Hewitt, who is, I think, a second-term state senator from the town of Slidell, Louisiana. So we basically got kind of like 2 people on the Republican side that were, across the Mississippi from us. And, Jeff Landry on this side of the Mississippi, west of the Mississippi. Also, I think Moon has reported that on the Democrats' side, it looks like we finally might have a candidate emerging by the name of Sean Wilson, who has this past week announced his resignation as Bel Edward's State Transportation Secretary, the DOD, So, if you like the roads in Louisiana, you probably like this guy, Sean Wilson. But I don't think any really listener of the Cajun Conservative is probably interested in throwing their support behind John Bel Edwards. So that looks like the four candidates. The only other, I guess, big deal that has come out that the guy that we really thought that was going to challenge Jeff Landry the most, Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser, has announced that he's going to go ahead and stick with the lieutenant governor race. He's not going to run for governor. And really, that's a huge story because that would have been quite a battle, most observers agree. So looking at the Republican side now as it stands, Sharon Hewitt, she looks like a lady, that has some business experience, got a business background, to go along with a couple terms in the state Senate. But other than that, really looking at her profile and reading a little about her, there's nothing that really grabs Brother Barry as a conservative. I'm sure she's a nice lady, but there's something missing. And I did also with John Schroeder. I did get to listen to an interview that Moon Griffon did with John Schroeder, the Treasury Secretary who's running. And once again, while he seems to be a very capable individual, his focus during the interview was mostly like, let's make government better. Let's make government more efficient. That's, very laudable objectives, to make the government better. But, it's still that is the focus of your message. That kind of misses the mark for a conservative like me, Brother Barry. What I'm looking for, the kind of leadership that we need as a state at this time. So, barring any other late entrants to the race, that probably with a process of elimination, Brother Barry's looking at Attorney General Jeff Landry. He's looking pretty good. And like I said, with Nungesser stepping aside, many prognosticators around the state have suggested that this race is basically Jeff Landry's to lose. But, that's kind of what us Republicans have gotten good at doing, is losing the governor's election when we should be winning. The last couple election cycles, the party has been divided by, vicious infighting, between various Republican candidates who otherwise should have easily beaten the lip-smacking Bel Edwards. And, so something's got to change with that. I remember Ralph Abraham was viciously attacked by it, responding, and that kind of, it polluted the waters for the general election, and Bel Edwards won again. And before that, it was David Vitter had some personal issues that were trumpeted up that gave us, can you imagine it? We would live in a different state right now if people would have elected David Vitter back 7 years ago. And, I've seen Moon also, I think it was Moon or somebody was telling me that there's supposed to be joint appearances with Jeff Landry and Nungesser. So we kind of see, I'm starting to see some unity here because, and that's what we need. Because, the state Republican Party, which kind of stayed out of the prior two elections and basically kind of let things go the way they went, they have actually come out and endorsed Jeff Landry. So we see a coalescing around this candidate, and that we haven't seen in the previous two cycles. Now, anything can happen, like I said, because the media has definitely seen this. So, of course, they've got the long knives out for Jeff Landry already. And Landry also has been reported has raised more money and has more money on hand than any other declared candidate. So a lot of things are going his way. But, even with all this, that's really not the main reason. I want to see unity be around one candidate. I want to see the Republican Party united in this November election. But the main reason, I like Landry because, I kind of know Jeff Landry. He's been around in Louisiana politics for a little while, And if you go read his bio, he's a lifelong Republican, which, that's kind of a rare breed in Louisiana unless you're very young. Because like I said, back in the 60s when I was raised, that might have been 10% of the people were registered Republican. So in that regards, Jeff Landry is a rare breed, being a lifelong reporter. But he's not just a Republican. This is a guy that has some bona fide conservative credentials. He was first elected. He represented the 3rd District of Louisiana in the House of Representatives. So he was in Congress, and also right now he's finishing up his 2nd term as a Louisiana Attorney General. In short, Landry is not one of these Johnny-come-lately Republicans, who has no track record, might talk a good talk, but doesn't really have a track record where we can see what he's actually done and accomplished. So that's one reason I do lean towards Jeff Landry. In Congress, he was one of the biggest champions for the oil and gas industry. And of course, he's from Acadiana, where, we've been the oil hub of Louisiana, since the 1950s. So this is a guy that really will stand and fight for the oil and gas industry. He's not going to be one of these Republicans that I see even in our state land. They're talking about putting windmills in the Gulf of Mexico, people. I mean, we're going to complain about rigs, but you're going to put hundreds and hundreds of these gigantic windmills that some people are claiming it messes up the whale's sonar. And these whales are washing up in the beach in California and other coastlines. Where's the environmental wackos on this green energy nonsense? They hate the oil and gas industry, but boy, they're quiet about that. So Jeff Landry, we do not have to worry about him stabbing Acadiana in the back in the oil and gas industry, and he might be able to bring that industry back, which is fled under the oppressive regulations and lawsuits that Louisiana has put on them. So yeah, in this green energy, it makes no sense because it puts our state and the rest of the states of the United States basically at the mercy of China. Because who produces all these solar panels? Mostly China. Windmills, batteries. Where do you have to go to get these batteries, these gigantic batteries for these EVs? You basically have to go to China because they have most of the rare earth minerals that you need to produce these things. So why in the world would we ever want to make ourselves more reliant on China, who has basically said, and intimated they're at war with us right now? And like Ron DeSantis, a lot like Ron DeSantis, Landry has proven to be a reliable cultural warrior for the conservative side, which puts him well above, I would say, his other two Republican opponents, because they have, they just don't have a track record to show that, they will fight for conservative values for our children. He's always been pro-life as Attorney General. He has filed lawsuits against the Supreme Court to outlaw abortion. Lo and behold, Roe versus Wade was reversed last year, something that I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. He has fought the dumbing down that was caused by Common Core in our Louisiana schools. He fought Bel Edwards on this issue. He's fought President Biden on the border, filing lawsuits with these other Republican AGs. He's been on the forefront of combating the radical Biden and Kamala Harris agenda. And, me and brother, when Biden was running, we warned everybody he would be horrible. The Cajun Conservative warned people. Isaac Hayes, he warned people that Biden would be very bad. And if anything, he's outdone what we said he would do. But Jeff Landry has been standing in the gap, standing in between Biden and the people of Louisiana. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. Another issue he's been battling is the LGBTQ agenda, of course. And that was something Bel Edwards was refusing to undo in our Louisiana government. Bel Edwards trying to push the LGBTQ agenda in state government. And AG Landry is sued to stop that. So, and also over the years, he's joined with other Christian conservatives to fight for the First Amendment to ensure our religious freedom. During the pandemic, he fought the radical COVID vaccine requirements. Him and other AGs, once again, they filed lawsuits, trying to reverse these vaccine requirements, and also fighting for election integrity. So this is starting to sound like exactly what Louisiana needs. So we know how important election integrity is because we just went through this 2020 election where they allowed things to go on that should not go on. This mass mail-in voting, it's not good. So, in summary, I don't really see any reason that Brother Barry, and I'm not speaking for the Cajun Conservative here, but for me, Brother Barry, I don't see any reason not to support Attorney General Jeff Landry for governor. He checks all that boxes of what Louisiana conservatives are looking for. And for that reason, he will be vilified in the press because he is the front runner right now. So they're going to be coming after Jeff Landry. So just wait for it. Don't be shocked by what they say about Jeff Landry. But, so will 2023 be our year, where Louisiana finally turns from being a purple state to a red state? We all hope and pray so, because, the future, our future and the future of our children are definitely on the line. And if we do get Jeff Landry as governor, all of a sudden you might start seeing all these Republicans in the legislature who act more like Democrats. You might start seeing them act like real Republicans, because that's what a real leader will accomplish as governor. All of a sudden you'll start to see these rhinos grow backbones, because they have a strong leader, and they have a strong leader that's supported by the electorate. And it will just, naturally flow that all of a sudden some of these legislatures that are spineless, they'll start acting like conservatives. And it really, if Jeff Landry is elected, I will say right now, he will be the first conservative governor elected in my lifetime. Because although we've had Republicans as governor before in my lifetime, I would not call them very conservative. They were very disappointing in what they did. And I know a lot of my fellow conservatives right now, you're concerned about election integrity issues. Does it even matter if we vote? I've heard people say that. They said, oh, man, it doesn't matter who we vote. They're going to steal it anyway. Now, in Louisiana, I'm telling you right now, Trump got 58% of the vote in 2020. Okay? So whatever election issues that we do have, and we probably know where they all are in Orleans Parish. I heard recently there's a lawsuit going on right now that's tied to the recall petition against LaToya the Destroyer, the mayor of New Orleans. And the recall is suing the registrar of Orleans Parish to remove some more dead people off the vote. I think like 500 dead people and another 20,000 that they claim have moved out of the parish. So there's some issues that are still being litigated. Hopefully we'll get even more, but I've checked the registration site every month that Louisiana, Kyle Ardwin, the Secretary of State, puts out once a month. And just this past month, Louisiana lost 54,000 registered voters. That means these rolls, for the most part, are being purged of people who have died or left the state. So that gives Brother Barry some confidence that, we're not going to have any excuses in November. This is up to us. We've got to get out and vote. And if we get out and vote in the numbers anywhere close to what we did for Trump just 2 short years ago, this should be a landslide for Attorney General Jeff Landry. So, we don't have a perfect voting system, but the only way, if we do have problems, is to get out in mass and vote. And so at this point, I'll begin to end this program. Friday, I was kind of noticed that, somebody all the podcasters look up to and really started this format of political talk on radio and podcasts. It was the second anniversary of the death of Rush Limbaugh. And he really was a guy that influenced me a lot out of college. I started listening to him during the Daddy Bush administration. And I was right out of college, and a lot of days on my lunch hour, instead of going to eat somewhere, I would just go pick up something up and to eat. And I would just eat in my radio alone, but not alone, because Rush Limbaugh was speaking to me, and he really did influence what I thought about conservatism. And really, Rush Limbaugh is really the best friend that I never met. But just a shout out to Rush, mega dittos for all that he did and meant for conservative talk radio. And I just will end it off by encouraging, please get active in this election cycle in the state. Don't overlook these state elections for the 2024 presidential election. This is all the marbles are on the table in Louisiana. It's going to affect us tremendously. So please get out and vote this November and make Louisiana great again. So this is your brother Barry Martin signing off for the Cajun Conservative Show. Thank you.
He said that Jesus Christ has risen, and he is